Welcome to Taiwan. Today we're going to be discussing the end of Dutch Taiwan and the rise of the first Chinese kingdom on Taiwan, the Kingdom of Dongning. And we're going to discover the life of their first ruler, Kojinga. I'm going to start with his life in China and we'll go how he came to rule the first Chinese kingdom in Taiwan. But first, I've been invited to go go-karting, so let's have some fun. So, I just came back from the go-karts, just outside of Taichung City, great fun. And also, it is the hottest day so far this year. It is swelteringly hot today. But anyway, before we get into the history of the Kingdom of Dongning and Kojinga, we need to talk about Mainland China. What was going on? Well, the year is 1644. The Ming dynasty is on its last legs. It's about to collapse. And the Qing dynasty from northern China, well now northern China, Manchuria, have pushed down. They've taken Beijing and they're pushing down. So the Ming dynasty is held up in Nanjing. They're trying to hold off and try and push back the Qing. The Ming's last stand really. But the Qing defeat the Ming. And the Ming are forced to retreat even further south. Really far south, right into the real southern provinces. The Qing have nearly complete control of all of China. The Ming dynasty retreats to the court of Fuzhou, which is not too far from Taiwan actually. It's just on the southern coast of China. And who's in charge of Fuzhou? Why, it's none other than Kojinga's father, who's actually quite a famous pirate and bandit. So he went around, he secured his position and used this power as leader of Fuzhou to secure influence for his family within the Ming court. So who was Kojinga? Well, at this point he was just sort of a man, no one really important, until the Ming went to Fuzhou, where now he had influence and family and friends in the Ming court. So with this influence, he managed to secure leadership of an army and was ready to fight against the Qing. So Kojinga went to Guangzhou, in real southern China, really close to Hong Kong actually. He consolidated his forces and moved them to the Kinmen Islands, which today are actually governed by Taiwan. He moved to the Kinmen Islands, ready to fight a big Qing force he knew was coming to finally eliminate the Ming. And he waited and waited and waited. But this force never came. Turns out the Qing knew he was on the Kinmen Islands and they had to take him out first because they couldn't just let him sort of go from behind and cut them off. No, they couldn't do that. So they got some ships, a huge navy, and was ready to attack the Kinmen Islands. But a storm hit and all the ships were destroyed and most of the army was destroyed. So Kojinga, seeing that this force was destroyed, sent his forces from Kinmen to the mainland again, and he crushed the Qing army. This was one of the largest armies the Qing had, and it essentially opened up a straight direct route to Nanjing and then to Beijing and then maybe to even Manchuria itself if he was successful enough. So the Qing started to panic. I don't want to undersell how scared the Qing were of this crushing defeat of their army. The Qing considered moving out of Beijing, maybe even disbanding their entire empire because of this one failure. However, Kojinga could have taken advantage, but he didn't. Hence why the Ming dynasty didn't really survive very much for much longer than this. Kojinga, however, had one huge problem: his ego. He wanted to be just like his father. His father was famous for defeating the Dutch, remember them, back in the islands, in one big, glorious battle, and decisive battle. And Kojinga wanted to emulate his dad. He wanted to defeat the Qing in one big, massive battle outside of Nanjing to say, yes, I'm the best, you can't stop me, we're number one. However, this meant he told the Qing where he's going to be. He removed all element of surprise. He could have just stormed Nanjing, stormed Beijing. He should have with real military strategy, but he didn't because his ego got in the way. With Kojinga's army, geez, what is going on with my hair? With Kojinga's army completely crushed and destroyed, there was nothing really more the Ming could do. This was it. That was the death knell of the Ming dynasty. But Kojinga was loyal to the Ming dynasty. And wouldn't it be nice if there was this big island, really easy, defensible and hard to invade, full of, and increasingly full of, Chinese people? Oh wait, yes there was, Taiwan. And to anyone who knows recent history of Taiwan, this will sound very familiar to you. So, just like Chiang Kai-shek would do about 400 years later, 300, 400 years later, Kojinga moved to Taiwan, set up the Kingdom of Dongning. He actually arrived sort of in the south as well, and we'll get on to what exactly he got up to in a second. He arrived in the south, ready to, and poised to re-invade China, just like Chiang Kai-shek planned to do in the future. So the year 1661, Kojinga gathers up the remnants of his army and moves to Taiwan. He proclaims that the island has always been part of China and the Dutch were allowed to be there, but now was the time to go away, to get out. This is China now. So the Dutch, as previously noticed, were very, very brutal and weren't very popular with anyone really. No one really liked them on the island. So Kojinga mustered all the Aboriginals, all the Chinese immigrants, and he said, no, we're going to defeat the Dutch. He rallied them up, and in various sort of sieges and battles, often with the Aboriginals with nothing more than basic farming equipment or spears, they stormed and raided and defeated the Dutch. They kicked them out. There were celebrations all across Taiwan. The Aboriginals were happy the Dutch were gone, and the Chinese immigrants were happy they were ruled again by the Chinese. Because there were a lot of people who worked with the Dutch, and he couldn't just get rid of all of them because they had a lot of the expertise, they had a lot of the knowledge and community ties. So Kojinga couldn't just kill them all, so he offered them amnesty and said, you know what, join us in the revolution against the Dutch, and I don't care, it's all fine, work with us, we'll establish a great kingdom. So going back to the Dutch on Taiwan, so right before Kojinga arrived, the Dutch imposed super high taxes on both sort of income and wealth, as well as everything that the Aboriginals and Chinese owned. Because of these high taxes, one farmer had enough. He was like, no, I can't stand it anymore. He attacked with a few of his buddies, about 120 of them. He attacked a Dutch fort that he knew at this particular time would be pretty unguarded, and they actually beat them. They beat back a couple, there was only like 10 Dutch there admittedly, but they beat them back and took their weapons and ready to go. But they didn't really know how to use them. And so the Dutch were angry, very angry, and sent 120 of their best soldiers to take out these 120 Aboriginal sort of revolutionaries. And they got crushed. And the Dutch, in response, didn't just take down the revolutionaries and say, no, okay, I get it, no one else. They killed 10% of the entire island of Taiwan. 10%. So this is right before Kojinga arrived. And when he arrived, it was easy to use and tap into this discontent about the Dutch. After the defeat of the Dutch, Kojinga proclaimed himself Lord of the Kingdom of Dongning. Then all throughout Taiwan, people were celebrating and cheering, and they were burning their Bibles and all Dutch books in celebration that the Dutch were gone. They don't need to be Christian anymore. They don't need to be like the Dutch. They can be who they were. The first thing Kojinga did was proclaim that the Kingdom of Dongning was a safe haven for Ming loyalists, and he was ready to take back the mainland from the Qing, restore the Ming back. And as said earlier, that's just like Chiang Kai-shek against the communists, and it just like the same thing. It didn't really go so well because the Ming were never restored. So the kingdom that Kojinga inherited was very much an imperialist country. It was full of exploited people who didn't really know what they were doing and were very poor. So Kojinga used the knowledge of the few specialists that were on the island to teach the Aboriginals especially how to use farm equipment, how to ride oxen, how to look after them, how to be more Chinese. So he really sort of, the first sort of big signification of Taiwan happened with Kojinga. And in a similar way to the Dutch, where the Dutch would give these staffs of authority sort of and give these people Dutch clothes and try and encourage Dutch culture, Kojinga did the same with Ming Chinese culture. He gave elders, not just elders actually, but most Taiwanese Aboriginals, as well as a lot of the Chinese people, he gave them Ming gowns, Ming caps. He made them be true Ming people, as if there was no difference between the Ming dynasty on the mainland and the Kingdom of Dongning. They were one and the same in his eyes, or at least culturally. Kojinga, he liked to tour around Taiwan. he would just sort of walk around and sort of meet people, go to the villages, see where there was. And every time he was there, he was met with huge crowds and huge celebrations. He was the hero of Taiwan, really. Despite the fact he never formally controlled all of it, he in reality did control all of Taiwan. Even if his official legal authority was mainly sort of in the old Dutch territory. He had unofficial influence, not just actually on Taiwan, but a lot of the sort of the main parts of Ming resistance on the mainland, such as Fuzhou and the Kinmen Islands. However, this popularity was not to last. Not because of Kojinga himself really, but because he died of malaria. And there's not really much he could do about that, because he died. And so his son took over the Kingdom of Dongning. And he propelled to really establish its control formally over the rest of Taiwan. But we'll get on to him later. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. That's the end of the Dutch Taiwan part of the history of Taiwan. As you saw, there's no more Dutch Taiwan, they've been kicked out. The Kingdom of Dongning section will be the next section. There won't be so many videos. I can't quite tell you how many there'll be. I'll try for 4, but whereas Dutch Taiwan lasted for about 50 years, the Kingdom of Dongning lasted for less than 30, despite its huge importance in Taiwanese history. So I'll try and do as many videos as possible. However, we'll see how many I can actually do. So the next episode, we'll be discussing the successor of Kojinga and what life was like in the Kingdom of Dongning and various. You have to check it out to find out more. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, do whatever you need to do. Interact with the video. The more interactions, the more the history of Taiwan can get out, the more we can spread this history of this amazing island around the world. I'll see you next time.